Five Nights at Freddy's. We saw it.
It took a few tries, but yeah, we did see it. So last night we went to the theater to see this, and it was a packed house.
It was really packed.
And one cool thing though with that was that there was quite a few people that were like dressed up.
Yeah.
And we're very excited for this. And there was a lot of gasps and oohs and ahs during, certain reveals and certain cameos and everything. Mm-hmm. So that was cool.
Really cool.
Unfortunately, Kaylee started feeling unwell about halfway through, and we had to make the decision to leave, which we did. And we made that decision, I think, because we had the option of going home and watching this on Peacock.
Yes.
But when we got home, she still wasn't feeling well enough to watch it at home, so we had to wait till today. Yeah. Which is fine. So, Five Nights at Freddy's, obviously based on the hit video game. Video games. The video game franchise, including part 1 through 4, Sister Location, and Security Breach, along with Security Breach Ruin.
And all the books.
I pay attention. I pay attention to your stuff. So this obviously, as I said, is based on the game. Now, Josh Hutcherson. I always thought it was Hutchinson, but it's Hutcherson with an R. Somebody said that when I was like in some review I watched or something else. Hutcher? Oh, huh.
Hutcherson.
Yeah, Hutcherson. So he is a guy who's looking for a job, and he finds one working security at a rundown 1980s abandoned building that someone is still paying to have watched for God knows what reason. We'll find out. And the animatronics are not as immobile as they seem.
They are not.
No. So I definitely want Kaylee to lead on this one as far as her opinion and everything, because just for context, she's a big old massive fan of this franchise. We have like tons of the books, and she's watched all sorts of freaking videos, the Matt Pat and those videos and whatever. So you're like really, really into this stuff. I personally think the games are pretty stupid and uneventful, and are meant to be played like once, like the maze game or something, where like the gimmick is old, and I don't understand the mechanics of the game. I genuinely think the thing is just kind of random. It's like sometimes they'll be there, sometimes they won't. I don't know. I'm sure people will disagree with me on that, but the first 4 games that I watched, dumb. Security Breach at least is like an actual game. But anyway, I'm not really much of a fan of this franchise. I think the lore from what she's told me is cool, but outside of that, yeah. So this is your baby. Take it away.
Oh no, you're putting me on the spot. I really like this movie. I thought it was great. I think that the animatronics are probably my favorite part. They look exactly how I would want them to look. They look like they came straight out of the games, and Jim Henson's company worked on them, which makes sense why they would be so spectacular, but I really, really love them. And I think that the film has a really cool vibe to it. I think it's very, from what I can tell, it fits in line with the lore well enough. I mean, Scott Cawthon has worked on literally everything, like every part of Five Nights at Freddy's, and clearly like he was involved in this movie too.
He wrote it.
So I don't know. I think that it fits really well with the continuity of the franchise so far, and I love that it's like finally coming to the big screen. So like I want to have more movies and more installments. I think that this has a lot of potential for that, just because of the games and because of all the books, and because the fandom is so like passionate and into it and everything. So I was really a big fan of it. I think that this is a film though that I think it's a great family film. I think it's a really good like PG-13 horror for families with like kids in the age range of like maybe like 10 to 13.
Okay.
maybe a little younger. I don't know, but if you're not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, I don't know. I don't know if the movie will work for you because
Well, you
I,
don't got to tell me.
I
I'm not a
mean,
Five Nights at Freddy's
yeah.
fan, so you can get that perspective
We'll
right
get
here.
it right now. I mean, I think
Um,
it works. Okay, I just want to say I do think it works. It can work, but I think that you will get more from it from being like a fan. Like I think if you're excited about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's going to be more exciting for you. But by saying that though, I don't think it's a bad film at all. I think that like it's well made and it looks good, and I was really into it. And you'll understand like even if you don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, like the story is contained enough that you're like it won't be confusing.
no,
So
I don't think so.
no.
Um, so this is directed by Emma Tammy, who directed a film called The Wind, which is a really cool thing to see. You know, whenever you see these like indie low budget horror movie people getting a crack at like a bigger franchise film like this, you know, something attached to a big IP. I always like to see that. They didn't just go and hire somebody who has like multiple bigger named films under their belt or something. Like they took a risk and took a not very seasoned director, which I just, I always can appreciate that because it always makes me feel like, hey, if I made a cool enough little indie movie, maybe I could be making a Five Nights at Freddy's film, right? Like, it's exciting. So I just want to point that out. So, okay, as far as someone who's like not a fan of the games and what I thought about it, I thought the film was fine. I definitely think, okay, so one of the problems, right, with like trying to connect this to an audience who isn't into the lore and isn't just there for like callbacks and connections and cameos and like, oh, I love that character and I'm just waiting to see Chica or whoever. You have a game that, as far as like the structure of the game is, you have a security guard who's watching monitors, and if he doesn't watch the monitors in the right order in the right places, then a friggin' animatronic attacks him, right? So there's not like, as far as that very very basic premise goes. Now there is a much larger amount of lore that has been added on since, but you know, I just think that they were they were like really trying to make this have some bigger story connected to all these different elements with family and stuff. So Josh Hutcherson has this past trauma that he keeps trying to connect with through his dreams. And the way that this plays into the film feels like overly convenient and convoluted. And so that's an issue. The reveal of like the villain and the climax of that stuff, that didn't work at all for me in any way, shape, or form. I thought that was super lame, super quick. It was like, oh, that's it? That's okay, that's the whole thing. As far as like how the robots, the animatronics were utilized, yes, they looked great. I mean, they looked, Jim Henson's, crew worked on them, and they look game accurate, but like brought to real life, which is great. And I completely understand why someone who was like crazy about these games, was super into this. But I just found that the the animatronics are sparse when it comes to like how they're used in an effective, scary, creepy way. And I've actually seen negative remarks towards this, that the scares in this are cheap jump scares and that it relies on that so heavily and this and that. While that is technically true, it is going for cheap jump scares. The game itself is a cheap jump scare. So that's to be expected. That being said, it's very, very little. The interaction that you get from the animatronics in a threatening and evil way, like the looming presence of danger.
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel like they properly utilized that. I don't feel like we get enough time to be afraid of them as villains.
Yeah, I mean I do think that because of the larger story,
Yeah.
like that's not the focus of the film. But as far as like the jump scares, like I do think I think the movie works with the jump scares because it's based on the games, and also like it's important I think for people to remember that like a large part of the fandom, like of people that are into this, are kids, like they're young. And so the movie I think is a really perfect like intro horror for those kids,
Right.
like because there's kids younger than 10 that are into Five Nights at Freddy's,
Right.
so and there's like one scene
You don't
in
want to scare them
this,
too much.
yeah, exactly, like you, and I think that it, for me, like it accomplished that. I think it has a really cool atmosphere. I think that it deals with some kind of heavy stuff, and I really appreciated that. And then also there is a scene that is like it's pretty quick, but there's like a little bit of gore in there that like I wasn't expecting. It's a little bit, but I wasn't expecting any gore at all in this. And so like to have that in there, I was kind of like, whoa, like that's more than I was expecting.
It's
Just
very
for
mild.
for this movie. It
But
is mild,
I get it.
but like being like a young kid watching it, like I could see that being like, oh my god,
Oh
like
my
what
God.
is that? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Sure.
But I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard for me to say whether or not I thought, because I did think that it was effective with the climax, but I was also anticipating it. So it's kind of like,
Right, you knew it was coming.
I don't know. Yeah,
But don't you feel like it's resolved way
well,
too quickly and easily?
yeah, I do think it's kind of quick, but I think that's because at least my hope is that there are multiple, like more films planned.
Yeah.
Because the story doesn't end there. Like there can be continuation.
But there could have been
So,
more of a climax to that. More of
yeah.
a fight.
Yeah, there could have totally been more of a fight. But you know, like if like it would be really cool if this like trilogy and this is kind of like the first film, and then we get more actiony kind of fight stuff. But there's there's not like fighting in the games and whatnot. But not that it has to be totally based on the games, obviously.
Well, we
Because
should
it's
never
not.
rely on another film
I know.
to try to fill
Yeah.
in the inadequacies of a confined film.
I
right?
agree. I
'Cause I
mostly am just excited about the concept of more films that would play off of each other, but I agree with you.
We'll see. I mean, it will come down to box office because right now the ratings on this aren't great, right? So I think that hardcore fans are going to be either hardcore fans who hate everything, or they're going to be like, love across the board. I don't feel like there's going to be an in between with like the hardcore fans. It's going to be like, no way, it's nothing like the lore, or what are you talking about? It's exactly like the lore. It's the greatest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to be attributed to the fact that a lot of these are kids.
Yeah.
But that's the internet, period. Kids are not, but especially since it's kids. We didn't mention that Matthew Lillard plays a character in this. He's not in a whole bunch, but of course, because of his involvement in like Scream and 13 Ghosts. And,
it's so wonderful seeing him.
It's cool to see him. Elizabeth Lail, who I know from You, season 1, as well as the movie Countdown, which I actually am a big fan of that PG-13 horror movie from a few years ago. I showed it to you. I think the little girl Piper Rubio who plays Abby in this is good. I think she really brought something to her role. So with kids it's always tough because you never know exactly what kind of performance you're going to get. Are they going to become annoying or this and that? There were some moments in here that I had like to question, which I think when some reveals happen, maybe some of my questions might be answered on like a second watch or just sitting and thinking about it a little bit more. But there's an interaction with a character in this movie, and then they're like very aggressively like against and dismissive of something, like after they've already kind of were complicit in it. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
But like, I think I understand the motivations now. And I kind of felt like it lost itself a little bit in trying to connect everything together.
Mm.
Like I don't think the like brother missing and trying to connect everything to that. I don't think that was the right move. I
Mm.
think that just became too convenient. That became too plot driven to the point where it was like, okay, we're really focusing a lot of time on these dream sequences and him talking, to himself and others in his dream. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't know. We didn't come to Five Nights at Freddy's to watch a guy dream for a third of the film, the same dream over and over again. So I think that might have been a misstep for me. But if that's like part of the lore and it connects in a way and all that, and people are happy with this as a game adaptation, then great. I don't care. I mean, not everything has to be made for me. But as an outsider who doesn't care about the lore as of right now, I just found the movie to be trying a little too hard with its story
Mm.
when it's such a simplistic concept of like killer animatronics and someone stuck inside a building trying to survive. Right. There's another movie that's very similar to this, Wally's Wonderland or Willy's Wonderland. What is it? Wally with a Nicolas Cage,
Yeah, I
which is
haven't seen it.
basically, I think it's Willy's.
Uh, my sister really loved it and recommended that I watch it, and I know you were kind of meh on it. But I
Yeah,
mean,
Willy's
yeah, the
Wonderland.
concept I think is simplistic, but there is more to the story, which is what I think was trying to be shown in this film because there is so much to explore with it. Like, it's not just killer animatronics, like, there's backstory and reason
Sure.
why. And I think that's important. And I think that that is something that makes Five Nights at Freddy's interesting and scary and tragic. So,
But yeah, I mean, with Willy's Wonderland is exactly what I expected this film to be because it's literally just like Nicolas Cage is hired for this job and then he's stuck in there with animatronics and they're trying to kill him and some kids like come in and break in or whatever and they're like trying to kill them too. And that's it.
yeah.
It is as basic as possible. Nicolas Cage literally says not one single word in the film. He's completely silent throughout and it's just purely man versus killer robots in a Five Nights at. I mean, this is 100% like a knockoff Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but that's like I don't know. It's funny because that one I'm not a big fan of, and this one I'm like kind of whatever on. So I don't know what I want from either
Yeah.
of these, right? Because I feel like I have like what I'm asking from this one is what Willy's Wonderland did, and I'm like, I don't really like that one as much either. So maybe
I
I'm
don't
just not
know.
pleasable with this story.
Maybe, maybe not.
I didn't hate it though,
I'm
for
glad.
sure. It's not that. I just, I just was like, I liked the performances. I like how it was shot. I thought that the animatronics looked great, as we had all said, and I thought the story just was trying so hard to connect itself without really focusing on what everyone was there for.
I do wonder too if this is like his first screenplay kind of thing.
Oh,
So
probably.
but obviously, I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
Great.
I was super into it, and I'm really excited to rewatch it. Hopefully with the kids, because I think they could handle it. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And even if not, I just still want to rewatch it.
I mean, if either one of us was gonna really enjoy it, I'm glad it's you. Because if I loved it and you were like I hated it, that would be horrible.
That would suck. Yeah.
I would much rather I hate it and you loved it. But I didn't hate
But
it.
I'm glad you're okay with it. And maybe, I mean, maybe on because we did watch this in two parts, unfortunately. So I do wonder if maybe some of those things that you had questions about or whatever, like on a second watch, like where we're like fully committed to watching it, maybe that will change for you. But it's a recommendation for me. I think you should watch it.
I think it's a watch it at home on Peacock recommendation from me.
That's fair.
If you have any
That's
interest
fair.
in it. But if you're someone who's like, I'm not interested in this, is it going to win me over? No. No, it's not.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Probably not.
So yeah. Anyway, that's that. Yeah, sorry this took a little longer, but shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we gotta take care of this lady. She's wonderful. All right. Bye.